over the 30, 40 feet. But I kind of like the people that chapter people. I think.
People, yeah.
So that part over the 30, 40 feet.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just this morning? Well, we're live, so whenever you're ready.
Okay, we're ready to go. Call the meeting to order. Our HPC meeting for May. It is May, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Are we all comfortable not wearing masks? I think we are. Okay, so we'll proceed in this fashion. And Heather is almost there with her vaccines. That's great. So roll call. I guess I call roll call, right? Okay. Christina here. Les.
Here.
John Sampson here.
Well, here.
Bill here. And Chris.
Here.
Okay, all present. Approval of minutes for April 23rd. Any changes? I see no problems. Thank you for those great minutes, Les. Any, if there's no other,
I'd make a motion that we approve the minutes for the April 23rd meeting.
thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, Christina seconds. And we have somewhere a signature sheet.
Yep, right here.
Okay, we'll handle that in a little bit. We are going to take some things out of order today from our agenda, but let's go ahead with a report from Heather on the advisory board.
Yes, we actually have a draft document of goals that our committee's reviewing. So I have nothing else to report, but that's exciting.
What? When was your meeting?
We haven't met yet. They've been doing it by email.
Oh, you haven't. Okay,
Right. They just
okay.
sent the edits that people have suggested, and now we're looking at everybody's comments together.
That's for the next 5-year plan, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Administrative issues. Chris, I have you on for social media. Do you have anything to?
I just was wondering if that was something that we might be interested in, and how the city would feel about us having some sort of something other than our website to kind of push historic preservation as an interest.
Twitter, other accounts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that savvy at a lot of it. I've never done Twitter or I don't know, even know the newer ones, but Instagram, Facebook or something I'm comfortable enough with to pursue if that's something.
You're probably more comfortable than me.
Yeah.
What is the policy, or is there one?
Yes, there's a social media policy. Did I email that to you all?
If you did,
I
can
don't
you?
think I saw that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will email it to you. It's definitely permitted. You just have to be really cautious. It's a big commitment when you do that, start a page and have to monitor it
Right.
and, how some of those comments can go. So, but yeah, I'll email that to you if that's okay.
Very good. Christina, how are you with social media? Are you active?
I'm at the same level as Chris.
Yeah.
There are folks, at Juniper that manage and do all of that. I do some of it, but I'd be happy to, once we take a look at the policy, kind of think about what it could look like. I'm also thinking, could we partner with whoever is doing social media for the city now and have some posts dedicated to, like, we craft the post and then we send it to,
Absolutely.
and it's in line with, with whatever the policy states, maybe we could go that route versus
It's more
taking on the
efficient,
full
maybe.
responsibility
Yeah,
of it,
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And I have my graduate assistant take care of all my social media. So I'm going to bow out of too much responsibility for that. But perhaps we could have Chris and Christina be our social media experts or co-experts in managing that. Would that be agreeable?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're willing.
Okay, excellent.
I have no knowledge of it whatsoever and don't intend to.
I Twittered, when it first came out in our college, I thought I got to be really progressive. I'm going to open up a Twitter account. And I was like probably the first in the college. And when I hit enter, I got like 10 emails said, I'm following your Twitter. I haven't touched it since.
You got scared.
I don't need more emails.
Right.
Yeah, okay, we might not want you to do it, Will.
No, I won't do it. I don't.
All right, great. Okay, under administrative issues, a second point was Ellen Dalton, who was part of the Boomtown organization when we had our earlier recognition of historic districts. And she emailed me about a month ago and mentioned that there was some money still left over from, I don't know when that would have been, the 1980s, in an account, which she was the financial officer for that. And she would like to, with approval of their board, donate that money to us. Now, she's still getting final approval on that, but there's a little more than $1,000. Can we use that?
I need to talk to our finance director. I'm not sure how that would work unless the mayor, you know more. I've not been privy to donation like that to a commission. So.
And I need to talk to the mayor at some point when we were talked about the foundation, like an endowed foundation, but once gets through the whole approval process with the park department and everything, but whether that would be something that money could be put into,
Oh, yeah.
you know, and only use the interest, which wouldn't be very much, or was their intent for us to have the $1,000 for immediate use for people's improvements?
The
you know,
intent was
interesting.
just, could we use it? And I said, yes, probably, but I wanted to clear it with our commission and with the mayor's office. So
Okay.
if you could check on that and
absolutely.
tell us how we can best proceed. I will get back to Ellen as soon as I hear back from you, Heather.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
Okay, we're going to move up the mayor's little update to this point in our agenda, just so that he doesn't have to sit here and be with us all morning. Well, I hope it's not all morning, but Mayor Asperger.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to take advantage of this opportunity to welcome Christina to the group and thank you for your service. I'm very grateful for your willingness to provide your expertise to the group. And also will say to the rest of the group, thank you for all the work that you've done and the continuing work that you do. You're doing great work, and I'm happy to support your efforts. So the genesis of my conversation with you today was the discussion that you held at your last meeting related to identifying city-owned buildings or city-owned properties that could potentially be considered for historical recognition, preservation, or however that may end up. As a response to that, John had requested that I talk with you a little bit in specifics related to our efforts with the new city municipal building, which, as you all know, I think, is going to utilize the site of the current senior center, or the old senior center now. They're moved into their new building. Many of you, like I do, have been here long enough to perhaps remember when that was a post office. So we're really excited that we're finally building a new municipal services building. The building that we sit in, I believe, was constructed in the early 1900s. I want to say 1914. And was, don't quote me on that because that's just a guess. But it was originally built as a school, served as a school until the local health department condemned it for use as a school. It then became the Wood County Library, served as a Wood County Library in the community for a great number of years until, again, the local health department condemned it for use as a public library. At that point in the early 1980s, I believe, it became the city municipal building. And it's been serving that as that function since that period of time. The addition to the east that contains the stairwell and the elevator was added a little bit later on. But the bottom line for me is that this building is old. It's the community has gotten its money's worth out of this community or out of this building. So we're really excited about the fact that we are finally, after many decades of discussion related to a new municipal services building, we're going to execute that project. So I'm going to dive right into the specifics related to this project. Heather has some slides, which is information that I believe you have received prior to this meeting. So let's just go ahead and go through it slide by slide. The first slide is just some pictures of the current administration building, the one on the lower left there. There's a site photo showing the senior center, the administration building, the apartments to the north, picture in the upper right, and then the east facade of the senior center, and then the library, which of course is our neighbor to the south. The next slide is the highlights of the analysis of this building. So one of the things that we first did was we went through a process, solicited proposals for engineering firms to do an analysis of both buildings, both this building and the senior center. The highlights of the analysis of this building are contained on this slide. As you can see, there are major interior renovation required to accommodate contemporary needs. The masonry exterior of the building is really deteriorated, really not a significant amount of historical relevance or significance to this building. I'm told that this was a bit of a cookie cutter design. There was a great number of buildings like this built in communities across the country during this time period. As the city has grown, we've jammed ourselves into this building, so there's not a great deal of organizational what's a good word, but we're just not able to really communicate physically, adjoining ourselves department to department. We're just scattered all over the building. We're really jammed into this building. We do have accessibility and building code issues. As I mentioned, the elevator was added and there's an ADA ramp on the south side of the building, but it's really not a great scenario in today's world. The mechanical, electrical systems, plumbing systems in this building are very old, need ongoing maintenance, and would require a significant investment in order to upgrade them. So the conclusion is that the best, most economic solution to this building would be to demolish it once it's no longer needed. The next slide provides highlights of the analysis of the senior center. We really did not discover any significant structural deficiencies. That building is built solid. It really is. From a structural standpoint, it is solid. But there are issues with the building, as we'll get to a little bit later. We recognized very early on that the significance of this building was the east facade. And it became a high priority for us as we determined what our priorities were going to be to carefully consider the historic relevance and significance of that portion of the building. So I'm pleased to say that the plan that we have settled on does include preservation of that east facade of the building. We'll have a little bit more detail on that later, but it was not difficult really to establish the fact that that is the front of that building does have real significant historical relevance, and it was our responsibility. I felt very strongly it was our responsibility to do what we could do to maintain that portion of the building. Again, there are issues with the building. Construction methods would allow for the removal of the back half of the building, which there's a slide we can look at a little bit later that clearly shows where we're going to, the demarcation between the facade that's going to be restored and the west half of the building that's going to be removed to allow for the new construction. The building, from an exterior standpoint, there is water infiltration, drainage issues. It's got a basement that's wet and does provide challenges. Mechanical and electrical systems are very old and at the end of their life cycle. That building has been kind of coddled or cobbled together to make it what it is today. They're just, as the use of the building has grown, they've required separate mechanical systems that they've addressed kind of on a piecemeal basis. It's all disjointed, it's all old, and would be expensive to replicate that. The electrical service, again, is very old. All of the switch gear is very old. The lighting has been upgraded. So again, we came to the conclusion that the value in the building, and again, going back to what I feel is our responsibility, is the facade of the building. So moving on the slideshow, there's a better picture of the east side of the building. You can tell that there's a lot of really great building materials there. And our architects and our engineers shared in our belief that this is where the value in the building lies. So there's some more detailed shots. Great building materials. I believe it's sandstone. The columns are sandstone. The brick or the block in the front is sandstone. You can tell there's beautiful work, cornice work there at the peak. Part of our process through the construction process is going to be to restore all of that. It will all be, one of the first things we'll do is we'll come in and we're going to support that. We're going to support that so that we can begin demolishing the second half of the building, and that will be properly supported, of course, structurally during the course of construction. But as we get into it, we're going to completely restore all of those materials on the facade of the building, and it'll be beautiful. Here's a site analysis. You can tell that they've identified that there's a lot of pavement there, very little green space. One of our goals as we expand and develop the site is to develop more green space. So we'll be able to see that a little bit later. There is no stormwater detention on the site. That will be a portion, that will be part of the new project. We will be installing a stormwater detention basin. It'll be an underground basin, and I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to utilize that water for irrigation on the site. Insufficient parking for staff and visitors in the current setup, and kind of a cobbled up traffic flow that we'll be addressing in the new building arrangement. So here's kind of a big picture view of what we are working towards as far as the traffic flow. You can see the senior center there. You can see the administration building. The primary traffic flow is going to be off of Main Street back through the church. In order to accomplish that, we're going to demolish the house that the city owns right here. So we'll have a straight access from Main Street all the way through. So next slide gets into, that's kind of basically the same thing. You can begin to see a little bit there with those yellow hash marks at the top, a little bit of the footprint for the new building and the parking areas. So next slide. Here's a general overview of what the site is going to look like. So one thing you'll see here is that a portion of Oak Street to the south is, we're planning to vacate that. And we're going to create some green space between us and the library that we think will be beneficial. You can see a little bit of staff parking on the north side of the building, public parking adjacent to the building on the west, and then the new parking area to the far west adjoining Church Street. Now you can see there's a small portion of Oak Street there that is still going to be accessible from the parking lot as an exit onto Church Street. That's an area that we're taking a great look at. As you're all aware, the library has their book drop off right there. we've been talking to the library regularly throughout the development of our project, and we made it clear that we will do, if they choose, we will do all that we can do to maintain access to that book drop-off. There has been some discussion about them considering a new book drop-off over on Court Street, which the city has studied that plan, considered all of the traffic ramifications, and there is a way that that could happen if that's a choice that they make. But again, we're continuing to work with the library, and if it's going to be necessary, we will maintain access to that book drop-off. So another picture of the east side of the building. Here's the north half of the building. That's going to be, you can see the sandstone, and then where that is joined, toothed together with the masonry extending to the right or to the west of the picture. That is the point where we will dismantle the facade from the existing structure, prop up the facade, and then build out to the west and up 2 stories. I think there's a really good slide of that right there. So now we start to get into some of our design concepts for the new building. So you can see that the building is building both to the north and the south of the existing facade, and also extends to the west. We're growing to the north, we're growing to the south with the new building. The new building will be right around 30,000 square feet on 2 stories. So this would be kind of a bird's eye view from the northeast. You can see the facade there. We're adding some green space in the front of the building. One note is that, you know, the existing, it was an old stairway on that existing facade. It's just basically a concrete stoop with a wrought iron fence around it. We're going to remove that, and we're going to create some green space in front of the building fronting Main Street. And you can see the green space both on the north side of the building and the west side of the building also. So now here we are looking directly at the east side of the building. Here's where you can tell pretty clearly that we're growing to the north and to the south. One key point that right here I would point out is that the window, which is the old door in the middle, that is a new window. That's going to be a new window, and it's going to be built to replicate the design features of the existing windows on both the north and the south of this used to be the entry to the post office many years ago. So that facade right there, and I'm not sure that I necessarily contained a slide to show this, but the new building is going to align with the center of this facade. And this portion of the old building is going to be utilized as the new city council chambers. So when city council is sitting at their table similar to this, of course, not this table, will be a new and improved table. Their backs will be to the east facade, and the backdrop to them will be the new window in the middle, and then the 2 existing buildings or windows on both the north and the south side, looking out towards Main Street. Now this is the south building. This is looking at it from the south. Kind of this will be the corner. You can see that Oak Street is no longer there. It's filled in with a wide sidewalk and green space. A lot of glass. This is where, you know, the design concept was to kind of blend 2 different visions for the building. We're going to acknowledge the historical significance of the old building by choosing building materials for the exterior that will very closely replicate the sandstone features on the front of the building. So it will be a masonry building that in texture and color, it will very closely resemble the sandstone in the front of the building. But there is more glass, and that glass is going to kind of bring a little bit of a contemporary look to the building as well. So we're kind of blending a little bit of old and new design concept here. So here's this is the west facade of the building. That is the entrance. When you walk into that portion of the building, that center will be aligned with the center of the new window or the old door on the east facade. You walk in and there will be a 2-story lobby that will have glass walls, 2 stories, and then access to the various departments in the building will be on both the north and the south side of the building. And then there will be, of course, an elevator going up to the second floor and a stairwell also. So we're still working on the final design concepts and arrangements of the building in terms of the departments, but we're aligning departments here. So in the new building, so there will be a section where the utility business office will be right off the main lobby. That's one of our most significant points of public service and access that is important. That'll be off the main lobby. Income tax will be associated with them. And then we'll also be aligning planning and zoning, public works in departments. So there will be a lot of collaborative opportunities, open meeting spaces, meeting rooms, common use meeting rooms in the building that should facilitate, number one, and most importantly, public access to the building. Whenever our residents need to interface with us, we want to make it easy for them to do so. And then also organizationally, we're bringing collaborative departments together and creating opportunities for close collaboration with staff. So here's the north side of the building. Flat roof, small section of flat roof. That would be adjacent to the mechanical room on the second floor, be the north side of the building. That's important for outside air intake louvers in the mechanical rooms, and also for access for future mechanical replacement and that sort of thing many, many, many years down the road. So what else, Heather? Is that the last slide?
That's the last slide.
Okay. So that's pretty much an overview of what we're doing. One thing that I didn't really talk about was, our approach to the construction of this building. Number one, we have talked about, and you're going to hear me say this a lot because I feel it strongly, our responsibility as it relates to historic preservation. And I think that we've done that. And it comes at a cost, but we thought that it was a reasonable cost in terms of maintaining that east facade of the building. One of our other major considerations are, again, as I've mentioned, accessibility for our residents. It's really important that our residents are able to get to us when they need to get to us. And another really, really significant consideration is going to be sustainable design concepts. We're working really hard with our designers to make certain that we're doing everything that we can do within our budget constraints. Of course, there are budget constraints to any project, but we are highly in tune to the need to utilize sustainable design elements in our building. We'll be doing that in our mechanical and electrical systems. We talked about the stormwater retention. We're using that water for irrigation, hopefully. And, we recognize that that's, again, a responsibility for us to do. We're not necessarily going to strive towards achieving LEED design certificates. There's, Chris, that there's multiple levels of LEED design, all related to achievement of sustainable design goals, gold, silver, bronze. There's costs associated with that. We're not necessarily going to seek that certification, but we are implementing LEED design standards in all of our systems. We will be including a requirement for recycled materials, for instance. And as I also mentioned, we'll be considering very strongly sustainable elements related to mechanical and electrical systems. Of course, all the lighting will be LED. Mechanical pumps will be on variable frequency drives. Air handlers, fans and air handlers, they'll be on VFDs. Our switch gear will be highly efficient. So again, we're focused on all of those things. And again, it's our responsibility to do this. So that's really what I have to offer. Hopefully I've answered some of your questions. At this point, I would encourage you to ask me any questions, any gaps that I haven't covered.
Do you have
Thank you.
any, sorry,
No, go ahead.
do you have any plans to reuse or find purpose for the historic material that's being demolished?
No, it's not our impression that the portion of the building that's being demolished really carries a great significant value. It's brick, it's masonry brick. And there's really nothing special about it. So no, I don't believe that we're going to utilize that in the new construction.
When I look at the presentation and what you sent, looked at it, it kind of reminds me like of a butterfly like that's the cocoon right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then the building looked like it became the butterfly.
yeah. We're
Still
really,
got the head. I
we're,
mean, that's-
we're really excited. I mean, there's no question. You know, I think that it's going to be a really great addition to our downtown. One thing that I've thought, you know, as we've developed this, that if the city were to be told that a business was going to relocate to Bowling Green or in our downtown and was going to invest $11 million in a building that was going to house nearly 40 employees, we would be ecstatic about that. Well, that's what we're doing. We're investing in the downtown of Bowling Green, and we house nearly 40 municipal employees. And most importantly, as I've said before, we need to build a building that allows our residents to interface with us, communicate with us when it's necessary. So that's again, a very strong consideration. But yeah, we're very excited. I think it's going to be a building that the community can and will be very proud of.
the green area that between the building and the libraries is
Yeah,
important too. When I was in Colorado Springs, work with Lawrence Halprin's firm, we vacated a street between a building the firm I work for owned and a courthouse. And it's like, that's to me really potential for development into a really neat outdoor area for the community to do
Agreed.
things to get together. And
agreed. Yeah, we've talked with the library about how they could potentially utilize that space. I mean, we love the concept of them making part of their programming related to children's services. Let's get, you know, bring the kids outside for story hour and let's create a space where, you know, everybody can enjoy. We would envision that there will be some sort of tables out there, employees, downtown workers can come and have a nice place eventually, where we're going to plant some trees. Eventually those will mature and there'll be a nice shady green space there for everybody to enjoy. So yeah, we thought that was a very important part of this.
This is a Pogemeyer design?
Yeah, so our design team, Pogemeyer is they're the engineering firm. Collaborative is the architectural firm. And then we recently, well, we're still in the process of finalizing a contract with Mosier to be our construction manager at risk. Again, going through a competitive process that include us issuing requests for qualifications. We then graded those and narrowed it down to 3. And then Mosier emerged as the most highly rated of the 3. So we're finalizing details of a contract with Mosier. As many of you probably know, Mosier was also the construction manager at risk for the new senior center. And we got nothing but very good reviews from the folks associated with that construction. So we're excited. Mosier's a very solid Northwest Ohio firm headquartered in Fremont. So they're close, they'll be accessible, and we're excited for the opportunity to work with them.
I want to ask our 2 architects what you think of the design. Not that we're at a point of offering suggestions,
Right.
but I'd like to know what
I
you're-
would too. Great question.
Okay.
I like the openness. I like the glass, I like the visibility.
Yeah, one thing that, can you go back, Heather, go back a couple of slides, right there, that slide. You see the very peak of the building, we've got windows on both the north and the south of that peak that's going to provide a lot of natural light into that 2-story lobby, which I think.
Daylight, a lot of daylighting.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they seem to have been, particularly on this east side, very sensitive for facade.
Hmm.
And, you know, new design seemed to complement in terms of height and proportion.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah,
But-
if you go back, Heather, another slide, maybe to the east facade. I'm sorry, go forward. My bad. There.
mhm.
You know, one of the considerations was achieving that balance, you know, both the north and the south, and then the challenge, of course, of fitting it on the site. It is a bit of a compact site. You look at it and it seems like, wow, that's a lot of room. We got the parking lot to the north. We got all this to the south or to the west, and it seems like a really big site, but it fills in pretty quickly. You know, one thing I didn't really mention in detail is that the plan is that Once the new building is finished, we'll move all of our operations into that building. And then the final phase will be the demolition of this building and the development of the parking. Another aspect of that is we're very conscious of creating buffers to the street from the parking area. So if we were to go back a slide, you would see that there is conceived live barriers, bushes on the Church Street side, and then wrapping around on that portion of Oak Street also. So we're conscious of our neighbors. They don't show it on Church, but we've talked about it. But yeah, a lot of green space, a lot of natural barriers, a lot of trees and bushes, and I think it's going to be a pretty significant site improvement when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think just the circulation of the vehicles through there and kind of keeping them separate from the buildings.
Yeah.
Because right now they're surrounded by circulation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit tricky managing the entrance on the north portion of the site off of Main Street. The way we conceive it right now is it will be right turn in only, coming from the south. We're debating whether or not we'll allow left turns in coming on the north. Haven't ruled it out, but that's a traffic consideration because you've got cross traffic. If there's a way to avoid that, we would like to do that. And then there would be only right-hand turns out if you were to exit that entrance. So you won't be able to turn left or north onto Main Street out of the lot, but you will be able to pull straight ahead to Church Street and go either north up to Clay, back to Main, or you could go south down to Court, or of course to East Worcester. So there's quite a bit of flexibility in the traffic pattern there.
I think it's a really handsome concept that you've come up with.
Thank you.
And a pretty happy compromise between the goals of historic preservation and the obvious need for a new city building. And in the long run, I think this would contribute to these long-term goals that we talked about as part of our incentives for the city in the future, of making the core and the corridors leading into the core more and more attractive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's great.
It's-
Happy this happened before I'm just talking for myself now. I'm sort of happy this happened before we really were in operation, because it avoided the possibility that we would feel compelled to try to save more of the building.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just me.
Well, I appreciate that. And, you know, I can't say that thought didn't cross my mind as well. But having said that, you know, I feel that, you know, when we sat down to begin looking at this, you know, your group had already begun their work. And we knew that this was going to be an important part of this discussion in terms of, you know, how we were going to treat that building and how we were going to utilize, you know, the site to build the new municipal building. So we very quickly, at the very beginning, recognized the historic relevance and value. And again, I'll say, acknowledge our responsibility to consider that as we developed our plans. So, you know, although I said that, you know, that the thought didn't cross my mind, I don't want that to seem as though we were trying to rush through in order to avoid that. That's not the case. You know, we're confident that, you know, if the historic preservation plan had been finalized and was in effect, that our plan would have been consistent with the primary goals of your commission. Could there have been some minor considerations or changes made based on those requirements? Perhaps, and we would have embraced those things. But again, I think that you know, the recognition early on was important, and we were happy to do those things because it's just the right thing to do.
I think just the importance of considering the preservation,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
you know, versus just demolish,
Yeah.
just start fresh with everything. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, we appreciate
it
that.
includes preservation. I think
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah. Well, that was a group effort. You know, everybody in this building, there are some people that have been in Bowling Green a very long time, like we have, and we understand the significance of that building. And we just really felt like we needed to do the right thing.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Did the city consider at all, and Chris knows the details of this much more than I do, but the historic tax credit program? I know that facades, staircases, things like that are considered, no.
No. I don't recall that being part of the discussion.
And it's too late
Yeah.
to proceed with something like that?
The issue would be that have a
Yeah, I was
sell
going to say
them.
cities would even get tax
Yeah,
credits.
so I'm not
Yeah, I'm not sure
if-
that cities necessarily can benefit from those tax.
Well, it
Yeah,
would
I
be
mean,
an-
you can sell them, you can sell your
Right.
tax credits.
So it would be an
Okay.
investor that would invest
Okay.
and would
Oh.
financially benefit from the tax credit. So the
Yeah.
investor's equity coming in would then finance the project, and then they would in return receive credits to offset their income tax.
Okay.
So you would have like, and there are a number of direct, investors that I know of just by virtue of the work that I do. However, the timing could be an issue. I didn't know what is the timing of the project?
Well, we're gonna start construction before the end of this year. Yeah, we're
Okay.
gonna start demolition work. We'll probably start in October-ish. I'm guessing, with demolition of the house over here, creating the laydown area for the contractors, and then they'll begin work on the existing building in that, or
Yeah.
after that. Yeah.
So the process is a little, it's laborious. I mean, you have to submit an application to the state, and they would then award the credits, and then you'd have to shop them to, an investor.
So
But-
I apologize for my ignorance of the
Yeah.
process, but in that scenario, is that a scenario where a private investor would finance the building,
A portion of it,
a portion of it?
and
Okay.
how they receive, so it's based on, because you're saving the whole front portion of the building, and let's say there were any other historical elements, usually staircases are very applicable to the program. So all of the expenditures that you would have for preserving the facade would qualify for the credits.
Okay,
And then basically the investor would come in and provide the equity for that portion.
I see.
Not for
see.
the portion of the whole project, but only really the portion of the qualified elements of the historical renovation.
I see. So there's two things that I'm thinking. One of the reasons for our urgency in developing the project was to take advantage of favorable financial markets.
Sure.
We went to market with our bonds week before last.
Okay.
It was very competitive bidding, and we were able to sell our bonds 30 years for 2%. That was, again, one of our goals,
Yeah.
knowing that financial markets were really, really attractive at that time. So we're thrilled, with that outcome on our bond. The other thing I would say is that, speaking from memory, the cost associated with maintaining the facade of the building was right around $60,000. Not a really significant sum of money in the context of an $11 million project, not an insignificant cost, but in our view, that expense certainly was justifiable when considering the historical relevance of the building.
Yeah, that would definitely not be enough in
Yeah.
terms of dollars to go through the process of, I
Yeah.
think, the tax
Right.
credit program. I mean, I'm shocked that $60,000.
No,
is what the
that's,
cost is
we
in
were
relation to
too.
that.
We would have expected much more. I mean, frankly, privately, I was expecting, that, because that was part of the
Yeah.
challenge to the designers during the assessment phase, was to identify the cost of preserving that portion of the building. I was privately prepared for that to be a big number.
Yeah.
That would have led to perhaps a more difficult conversation related to the economics of preserving that section. But when we heard that number, and that's inclusive, that's including all of the efforts necessary to shore it up, during the demolition of the west half and during the construction of the new half. And that's also the restoration of the existing materials.
Yeah,
So we were really pleased with that. And we heard that number. Again, it's not an insignificant amount of money. I mean, you know, $60,000 is still a lot of money. To me, it is.
Mhm.
But in the context of the total project, and again, considering the historic relevance and our responsibility, it was a pretty easy decision for us to say, yeah, we're going to do that.
Yeah, that is a little shocking. 60,
Yeah.
I mean, I was surprised to hear you say that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Chris probably is too.
Yeah.
But I'll also make the comment, this is a general comment in the construction world right now. You know, labor shortages as it relates to lumber is really an issue. And I hear your sense of urgency. However, I would comment that, you know, lumber is outrageous
Yeah.
and it is really causing a lot of projects right now in construction. I'm sure Chris knows too,
Oh, yeah.
that a lot of heartache as it
Yeah.
relates to budgets. So there are ways to mitigate that with your general contractor.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have already.
Well, we
about
that
that,
was a big topic of discussion when we interviewed all of the three potential construction managers at risk. I'm really lucky that you know, I spent my career in commercial construction. I've been around a lot of construction sites over the years, and so I knew just enough to ask enough leading questions that resulted in a lot of really great conversations. So very, very, very much aware of the challenges associated with supply chain and labor shortages. Of course, labor shortages, I think, are going to be easier mitigated than the supply chain issues. So, you know, a building of this sort, there's going to be a lot of concrete in the structural elements, and there's going to be structural steel, floor joists, I-beams, that sort of thing. One of the things that we are assessing right now, considering the challenges associated with steel, is do we reassess our construction methods and consider more cast in place concrete as an alternative to structural steel? Our contractor is going through that assessment process now. So they're weighing all of the factors, looking at, you know, talking to their vendors, their suppliers, in terms of availability of structural steel. And I mean, even metal decking, you know, for the second floor deck is going to be an issue. Metal for the exterior studs to, you know, support the masonry exterior of the building. All of those things are going to be issues. Mechanical equipment, the air handlers, the boilers, you know, everything. So the supply chain is definitely very, very, very high on our list of concerns and considerations, not only availability, but cost. You know, we've heard some buildings where material costs are being impacted maybe as much as 25% total
Easily.
budget costs. So we're assessing all of those things. Very mindful, but thank you for that heads up. It's just a big deal.
Great. Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
Really appreciate your
Sure.
presentation, and it looks very exciting.
Thank you
so
very
we-
much. We appreciate your help.
Can I ask an operational question
Please.
then,
Please.
from our point of view? So to go back to the question that John asked you that sort of started all of this, are you personally and the city in favor of the possibility of listing the, let's call it the central east facade of the building as a historic
I'm
preservation?
open to that discussion, of course. Absolutely. You know, I think that the one thing that will be important to me as we do that is that we consider, you know, the facade in the context with the rest of the new building and make sure that we're assessing all of that together. Maybe that's a misguided focus. I don't know. I just
Well, I
don't
think
know.
That's something we should talk
You
about.
know, I don't know.
We got rid of the age issue as an absolute.
Mhm.
So we could even consider the possibility of the building as a whole, I suppose.
Yeah.
But at least the
Yeah.
central east facade.
Yeah, so the back half of the building that's being demolished was added to the building much later. I don't know exactly when that was, but it was after the seniors took over the building. Because there was a
remember
period
that,
of
so-
time where it was empty when the post office moved from this location to the new location. There was a period of time where it was empty before the seniors moved into that building. And that's when the south half of the west half of the building that's being removed was added primarily as a kitchen and a dining room area. So the existing part of the building that was constructed, again, I think early in the 1900s, is being preserved. Including a vast majority of the interior materials. I think that there's some terrazzo floors that will be part of the. I might be wrong about that. I need to reassess that before I say that with any, because I can't remember exactly what they're going to do because there's an elevation issue with the existing first floor of the building and then the basement. I'm not sure exactly what's being preserved as far as the interior, the portions of the building.
That's sort of outside of our purview
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, but it's important, it's
Yeah, it's
important.
for the-
Yeah,
for
it's
the
important.
project
I
as a
do
whole.
know that, the council chambers is going to be that the existing ceiling in there is going to be opened up. And that council chambers is going to be basically a two-story
That'll be
building.
nice.
So the structural elements of that, which are stout, are going to be maintained and
They're
there will.
able to compete with the old Buffalo Municipal City.
I'm not familiar with
Gorgeous.
that building.
I think
Is
they
it?
have a gorgeous council chamber
Do
with
they?
the amphitheater seating and
Huh.
under the seats are these little wire things where the gentlemen used to put their hats.
That's a sign of another era, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It'll be a
Yeah.
little bit larger than this facility,
It'll be
this,
a lot
this,
larger
this
than
room
this.
here, right?
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
capacity of this room is 66.
Yeah.
I believe the capacity we're looking at in the new council chambers is maybe 3 times that,
Excellent.
between 160
You're
or
looking at some hot
180.
issues, I guess, then.
Yeah.
On there.
Yeah.
One more question I'd like.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
ask.
Okay.
So I have another question, a related issue that I'd like to ask you about. We have also approached the county commissioners about the possibility of their willingness to list the courthouse and maybe the old jail building as well with us. And they are, in a preliminary way, they're interested. And in fact, we've agreed that we'll meet with them on June 3rd to begin, informal discussions. Andrew Kalmar raised the question, I guess at least one of the commissioners raised it. What are the legal issues of one government agency putting itself dependent on another government agency? And I don't think we can answer that right now, but I was wondering if you think it would be a good idea for you and Mike Marsh to get together with at least a couple of us, or at least as many as can go to that meeting, so that we could kind of have a notion ahead of time about what the legal implications, if any, are.
Okay.
Think that could be managed before
Well,
June 3rd?
That's going to be tough.
Yeah.
We got Memorial Day weekend coming up.
Yeah.
Tuesday, staff is, the bigger portion of staff is in an all-day retreat related to our reorganizational efforts. Gonna be tough to pull that off before the 3rd.
Well,
So
that's
how-
not so critical because we, obviously we wouldn't be making any deals. at the
How
meeting.
about, Les, if you were to have that discussion with them as a preliminary discussion, maybe creating a list of questions or open issues that need to be addressed, and we can follow back at a later date. And I can give Mike a heads up that this is something we're going to want to consider. He can begin to do some research, and we could be prepared to answer those questions maybe at the next meeting.
Terrific.
Be okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Circling back, I don't think, John, I actually, or maybe it was you, Les, answered all your questions about city buildings. You had mentioned, of course, we've talked about this building. A couple of the other ones that were mentioned was Needle Hall in the
Needle.
park. And then I added a list, the
The
police
police
station, which I
station.
think is significant to
Mhm.
Yep.
consider. So just in general terms, I did want to say to you, as I did via email, that I'm supportive of those discussions.
Great.
When you get to that, let us know, what we can do to be a partner in a part of those discussions.
Excellent.
Those could act as like a guinea pig for us doing the processes.
And a
Yeah.
Such a
catalyst
procedure.
to
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
future. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to leave at this point. I've got another commitment, but thanks for your work. Thanks for having me
Appreciate it.
today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Go to. Sorry. Is the meeting longer than an hour? Okay. Is it supposed to be 2 hours? I'm sorry, I do have to go.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Building.
Um,
Story.
Can we set another meeting before you leave?
Sure.
Do you have two minutes, 1 minute? I will be in Maine until the end of June. So I don't know, can we do another early morning meeting at the end of June? Would that work for a group, or at least for most of us? Heather? Can that
Maybe you can
work for
give me a
you?
few dates and I'll check.
Okay, June 29th, June 30th, or we could go into July if we had to, but I know we want to try to keep a monthly meeting happening.
Like the fourth Friday or Friday's out.
The Friday's not going to work for me, but if we want to meet, I would not be able to come. We can do it.
I can do the 29th or the 30th.
I'm out.
Okay, I'll check the calendar if that's okay and get back to you all.
Sure.
Perfect.
You're welcome to have it at Juniper if you feel
I'll look
like
into
that's
that.
appropriate. I won't say it.
Yep,
Okay.
perfect.
Thank you, sorry.
Thanks.
So
We-
we're looking at the same early morning time on either the 29th or the 30th? Is
Thank
that-
you.
And the
Have a good day.
29th would be a Tuesday
Tuesday.
like today, right? We could go earlier. We could go at 7.
Yeah, forget that.
Or
I can.
or the evening before.
Oh, yeah, or midnight, whatever works.
Rather move it to evening.
Okay, well, thank you. I didn't anticipate that would take so long, but I'm glad that we had that chance to talk with the mayor. That's great. And we're all comfortable with the design, yes? Oh, comfortable enough?
Enough, yeah.
Yeah, there were some things that I would have liked to have seen, which I didn't want to bring up.
I mean,
think
they're far enough along.
it's kind of
figured-
late to say, let's
Right.
put another 2 windows on the side. And, I don't think that would have worked. Okay, well, we're going to have to skip around and cover as much as we can. But I'd like to hear about the presentation for the Exchange Club.
Yeah, I thought it went really well. I actually received email from Todd and I can't,
Yeah,
I can't.
I don't know who
remember
she
her
was,
name.
but
yeah,
yes.
just thanking us for presenting. I thought it was very informative. So
You were doing the slides?
Yeah.
So you do those into those?
yep, I
Someday
just
up to-
shared my
Okay. Because I thought that it was
That
very
works
smooth.
beautifully,
yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was very smooth
Yeah,
Oh, good.
transitions from,
I mean,
Yeah.
I was so apprehensive about the whole thing because they just,
I know.
my record with Zoom was not
We
good, but.
we practiced.
Yeah, I know. It helped though.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Did you have questions that?
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
Okay.
a lot of questions. It was a little hard to know how many people, the images only showed total of 4 people.
Right.
Whether there were others, hopefully there were others.
Yeah, I think so. My mother-in-law's a part of the Exchange Club. She wasn't at that meeting on a trip, but I guess some of them meet at the clubhouse.
Yeah.
So it sounded like maybe there were some people there that we didn't.
I know
But,
they were kind of specific about doing it on Zoom, and then all of a sudden they were doing it in person,
Yeah,
right?
I guess
That was a little
they're
strange.
slowly moving back and they're
Yeah.
doing a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
But
it
I
was,
think it was a really great format and really easy to kind of use that for if we want to present to other organizations. I know
I think
talked
we
with Les
should. I
about-
think we should try.
did you have
Yeah.
the notes like where, like specific slides? I was kind
A
of
little
following through
bit.
the notes and I thought maybe that's one thing is like where slide 1 would be.
Yeah, and I
slide 2 would
I could
be-
even add that in so we
'cause I
can,
think
anyone can easily
that'd be great.
maneuver it.
Yeah.
'cause you guys, it was really good.
But I thought Rotary or Honest, those organizations might be interested in. I don't have contacts, so I just know
Yeah.
of these.
But we may,
Your thought about the League of Women Voters, I mean,
Right.
that's a good one. I
Chamber-
mean, all of the ones you
Chamber of
suggested in that
Commerce,
email to
like a
me.
Chamber of Commerce,
Chamber, I
Oh,
think,
yeah, that would-
that's got a lot of the downtown business.
yeah, we may
we
want to,
should have a plan about how to pursue that.
yeah, the
I can't think on
downtown,
anymore right at the moment.
if we do a downtown presentation, I think I would want to really focus on just, the advantage of preservation, so tax credits,
right,
grant funding, all
Right.
those things that might be available to them. Because just to kind of get them excited.
yeah,
Yeah, we might want to try to delay that for a while and,
Yeah.
and do more with the more general groups.
Yeah.
Because if the more we can get people knowledgeable about it and interested, the more chance we might have of getting a positive response from the more political group, which I think the downtown people
Right.
will be.
So I don't know if anyone has contacts for some of those organizations that
Yeah.
you mentioned, or I can just Google and cold call.
we can do both. We can maybe think of people we know, and I can scout around my contacts. Let's add that for our next meeting. And then we can volunteer, volunteer ourselves to these organizations and just see if they're interested in a future presentation. And that may not be till we, the fall that we can actually pull off this. A lot of people are gone in summer, but let's see if we can find some more contacts. Good. Okay, Chris, tell us where we're at with the CLG.
Oh, you mean me, Heather?
I'm
you
Heather.
said
I'm
Chris and
looking
you're
at
looking at
Heather
me
and I'm
and-
saying
Heather,
Chris.
Chris.
I'm sorry, Heather.
No, you're fine. I haven't heard anything yet, so I don't have any updates.
Do we know generally how quickly they review and no, we don't.
When it's with the
Okay.
federal government, we don't know.
Okay.
Was there comments from the state?
No,
Nothing. No.
nope. We sent that memorandum that they needed, that the mayor signed, and sent all the resumes,
So
and I haven't heard since.
no editorial comments on the
No.
ordinance or anything?
No,
Well, that may be
That's
good news.
That's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's good.
They haven't rejected us.
no, they have not.
I don't
I
think
mean,
that's
I've talked a
gonna,
little bit with Nathan with, email and questions that you've all brought up. We talked a little bit about training, so I think that's another consideration that we should be looking at. Since we still have Zoom, that's certainly something that I think makes Nathan more accessible. So maybe we could just have kind of a round robin question session with him if we need to. And then at some point, he doesn't know when the actual in-person training will be allowed through the state. So just think about that. But I think we've had so many miscellaneous questions. I think it would be good to touch base with him, especially as we await that CLG status. But just building inventories, we talked a little bit about that. I've talked to him a little bit about the issues with, having a university here and the county buildings, and it's just not that simple since they don't have to follow zoning. So just things like that it might be helpful to talk to him about.
Do you think the process is going to go from the Park Service back to the state?
Yes,
So then they may be waiting to get editorial comments,
yes,
put them together and
correct, yes, could be.
okay.
So
Good.
we'll see. I think I guess we have to be patient, right?
Yeah.
In an inbox somewhere, hopefully, and
Yeah,
It's in
Up
someone's
next.
queue. Yeah.
excellent. Okay. Let's jump to, I do want to talk about keeping an outline of our planning outline going, but let's go first to update, that's letter C under number 7 of inquiries for other possible HPC proposals, and also our meeting on June 3rd with Andrew Kalmar. Les and I think, who else was going to go? Was there somebody else that was?
Will said he was
Will-
available.
Will.
at
The
that time.
commission?
Chris, you were uncertain whether you
Yeah,
could do
the-
any date except the 8th. and
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, the
Sorry.
third is,
Eighth didn't work.
Okay.
unfortunately.
Are they expecting a presentation or just?
They're
Just gonna-
expecting some kind of presentation, but I think it'll need to be different from the one. There's no sense in our talking about the things that we talked about, some of the things, because we don't have to identify a building. It's already there. It's just a question of whether they're willing to do it. So we'll need to focus that. I think we can use some of the presentation material that we worked up for the Exchange Club, but not all of it. So that'll have to be done.
So we want to talk about advantages for them or reasoning for wanting to do this? I would assume.
You know, frankly, I think most of the advantages are on our side. You know, it's a good publicity move. It's, you know, it'll help us with. I think we can argue to them that, you know, while right now there's absolutely no reason to doubt the commitment of this set of commissioners and this executive director, county administrator to historic preservation, you know, the Seneca County episode illustrates that, you know, elective office is a fragile thing, and you can wind up without ever intending to with a leader who leads in a bad direction, or a majority of commissioners who don't give a damn about something like historic preservation. So, you know, if we can clarify the legal issues, I think there are some advantages to the county in making a formal commitment to historic preservation. We just have to find out how that can legally work, given that they're a county organization and we're a city organization.
Now, did I forward the email from Nathan about this?
Yeah, well,
Um,
no, you asked him about the university, because I asked you to do
Okay, well,
that,
I
but-
asked him about county properties also,
Oh,
I
did you?
believe.
Okay.
And he wrote, I haven't, I see here. Again, since state entities don't follow zoning. So that's the basic premise. So in asking Nathan about that, how that works, he said, I haven't seen much on these or special arrangements, though I assume they exist. It may be that the specific designation ordinance works out a special case of additional consultation with the county as opposed to a mandate. Thankfully, the county seems very, very active in preservation, so something less strict should still work.
Okay, so that implies that there are other instances in the state where a county building is listed?
I think we'd have to ask him further on that because he
Yeah,
didn't
but
give
it
us.
Sort of seems to imply that it
Right.
has happened.
Well, I mean, just look at Columbus, you know, they still have a beautiful, you know, historic buildings and courthouse, so.
You know, I've tried to think about this, but, you know, I realized quickly how limited my ability is to think of all of these kinds of legal issues. But, you know, it ranges all the way, in my mind, from saying, well, if we're dealing with another government agency, and this would actually include the city as well as the university, maybe we just rely on that agency's willingness to commit itself and not worry about all the penalties and that sort of thing, and find some way of finessing that. I don't know how we'll do it.
Yeah, I think it boils down to, you know, positive relationship and partnership and, you know, what that looks like on paper. I mean, we can still rezone things or add
Yeah.
the zoning. It's just that they don't have to follow it. And I know that sounds funny, but that's the state of
Maybe
Ohio.
you have a separate overlay. Yeah,
Well, I
maybe
mean,
a-
I don't think we need to go to that level because the university's all zoned
Yeah.
a special district right now, but they don't have to follow it. So I think that's what you're trying to finesse here. You know, how do you do that without feeling like someone's hands are being tied? And I think that's what Nathan is getting at, that again, you want to maintain that positive relationship, open lines of communication, work together. And I think we all know the intentions here are all good. I mean, look at University Hall is beautiful. You know, the business college, Hannah Hall, they've went through great lengths
they
to,
maintain
you
them.
know, so I mean, I think the intentions are all good. It's just how do we get them, I think, on this registrar, because you want to have your register have a complete look at all of our historic structures. It's just that those arrangements, I think, are a little different. You can still, I think, go through the process. I think we're just gonna have to consider
And
what that
maybe we have a
looks like.
slightly different process. One thing that occurred to me, maybe in the case of something like the county, we agree that they will report any plans to quote alter. And unless we see something really wrong that violates the Secretary of the Interior standards, we would just sort of automatically issue our own certificate of appropriateness for our records and
That's,
sort of handle it informally.
that's kind of what I was
Maybe.
meaning,
Yeah.
like with the overlay would be, it's a spatial one.
Yeah,
In other words, that way
something-
there, it's not like a art historic district going out and encompassing the campus. It'd be its own.
some
In other
way.
words, it would have
Yeah,
its own
Yeah.
things then.
so one way or another,
Yeah.
we need special arrangements.
I think it sounds like an MOU, a memorandum of understanding,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you, both parties are agreeing to do ABC.
And we
Right.
keep a separate,
And
so
your
this-
head
yeah.
official signs it and your other head official signs it. That's what I think of as you discuss this. But again, I think we have to research it maybe a little more and see the options.
And then ultimately, we have an internal question. I mean, do we have to go back to city council to get permission to do such special things, or can we do that on our own initiative? We'll need to talk to Mike and the mayor, I think, about those kinds of issues as well.
I just wrote down MOU and then
Mhm.
put down what that means. Memo of understanding. I
Yes.
don't know
Mhm.
these,
Yeah.
this
Mhm.
terminology. Thank you.
No problem.
So were these concerns brought up from Andrew? Is that correct?
Andrew said to me, I'm not sure if he said one commissioner, or if he said some of the commissioners raised the question. They're positive. They like the idea. They want to talk about it, but they raised the question about whether it's appropriate for one government agency to bind itself under the terms of another government agency's rules and regulations. And it's a fair question. It's an obvious
Yeah.
question.
Okay,
So
Did you-
we'll need to be prepared to listen to them about
Mhm.
those kinds of questions. Obviously, we don't have any answers, but I think we can say that, at least speaking for ourselves, that we want to be flexible. We want to find some alternate way
Right.
of,
And I think we could even
Proceed.
just go with that statement, without even any other knowledge, and just say,
They're-
we don't know, but
Uh,
we want to find out.
and it seems like they're going to want to maintain these forever like this, the courthouse. I don't see them doing any demolition. And probably University Hall and all. So maybe just like for us to even just be able to say, recognize it as historic building.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the
Right.
main
That's
thing,
it.
right?
Just,
I mean,
just
right,
recognitions only and no
sort of
control.
like an honorary
Yeah,
Mostly
Bowling
recognition.
Green and Wood County landmark.
that's
Yeah,
right.
right.
That's right.
Put
Or
it
here's
on our
your-
list.
And here's your
historic-
plaque.
or it's historic properties, historic landmark.
Maybe that, yes. that
And
agreed
that's
to me
it. It's
too.
just a recognition. If we could just, if you'd allow us to recognize your courthouse as and that's it. No specific ordinance requirements like we have for the other property.
Obviously, we can't talk about requiring them to
No.
pay fines and
No,
Well,
no.
we can't even, I'm not even sure, what would the city? The fifth city, would the city fine itself?
No.
But we didn't think about these kinds of issues
No.
because we were preparing
But I
the
think it'd
CLG.
be
but
good to be able to recognize it as a historic property so we could
all
list
of
it.
these, and all of these questions apply to the
it's
university
exempt.
too, if we get to talk to the university at
And
all.
they would be exempt from the ordinance.
It sounds like they already
Yeah,
are.
they pretty much
exempt
already
from
are, yeah.
zoning
Yeah.
ordinances.
They already was.
They already are exempt.
They already are exempt from the zoning ordinance,
So
Yeah,
that-
yeah.
For
those
them
are-
to
yeah.
realize that we're not trying to control because you are exempt.
right?
And I have talked to BGSU about this a few times, and I think, the response was, what are the goals of the HPC?
Yeah.
That the larger, bigger picture intent, but certainly happy to discuss that further. And they know what buildings they want to preserve. And like you said, Will, it's about, I think, that recognition maybe. And then, we looked at it too as a marketing tool that, City of Bowling Green, we want to already know our historic buildings. We want those on paper. A walking tour, here's your handout, go see all the historic listed properties in Bowling Green. So I think there's more positive spin than, I don't think we want to tie anybody's hands. And
No.
that's been the response. Nobody wants their hands tied. They feel like they've done a good job with buildings and
Yeah.
preserving them and restoring them. So I think, just focusing on that positive But yeah, if you want to give me more direction with that and what that looks like next, but I certainly think it's a good thing. It's just, again, nobody wants their hands tied.
Could I ask, could you provide a copy of the ordinance and that sheet from Chapo that has the Chapo signature and the mayor's signature?
Oh, yes. Mhm.
Just to give, because
Mhm.
the commissioners have only seen a draft, a couple back. I think that they deserve to see the
The one that's
the
attached
final
to
product.
the minutes from this month? That the agreement you're looking at?
Was that in the minutes? I think it was.
Yeah. Is that what you're talking about? The certification
I'm
agreement?
sorry,
I think so.
Okay.
I think that
Yeah.
was probably, I mean, nothing is official yet because it hasn't
Right.
been, it hasn't gone through
Yeah,
the state.
just-
But
Okay.
this is what we presented.
just,
to
this
the-
is what we've done.
Okay.
This is the record of what we've done so far.
Are there any other county buildings that you'll want to discuss with them?
Yeah, it'd be a good point,
That's-
good moment.
We could ask them if they think there
Right.
are.
Oh.
But it would have to be in Bowling Green for it to apply to
Who
us. I
owns
don't,
the county home? That,
County home could be a good one.
yeah.
That could be a good
well,
one.
that's
not in the
no
city,
longer
though.
owned by the,
It's not in the city of Bowling Green.
It's not in,
not?
oh, the county home. Oh, yeah.
it's not within the city? Okay.
oh,
And the old children's home is now owned by private people, so that's,
But that still probably could be historic as a land. I mean, it's
Right.
history.
might be.
Its history is probably pretty
Not much
interesting.
interested in talking about dealing with Mr. Mauer right at the moment, but
right.
But that was, yeah, that
No,
could
I
be,
think
keep forgetting we're on Zoom.
they're, I mean, I think the old children's home would be a great one to, consider.
But it's not the
districts.
commissioner's
Right, exactly.
business anymore, so.
after listening to the seminar that Chris recommended, it was on tax credits. Something, and well, I think it might have been historic, the one with the Park Service and the National Register in the process. That was really good. One came to my mind as a possible historic landmark, even though the building is not there, but was the Heinz plant. And even if it's like to recognize the site,
Site.
you
Yeah.
know, because that had a lot of history.
Well, it had a big impact on the city, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something to add to our list of maybe pursuing as for recognition as a historic landmark.
Anybody else been in Bowling Green long enough to remember the smell of ketchup in the fall?
I just
I
remember
was
the
it only
building.
me?
I remember the building.
I remember the building.
They
I
weren't
mean,
doing ketchup.
Yeah, I remember the building.
Well, there was a strong aroma of ketchup
Yeah,
in
I
the
mean,
fall.
to me, I think that could be a good recognition. Like
Yeah,
have
that's
a
a good
little
point.
monument there, something that
With the
this is
big
where it was,
ketchup,
yeah, ketchup,
bottle.
a Heinz symbol. Now it's Kraft Heinz. But,
Okay, well, let's keep thinking on that and Needle Hall.
Maybe one more thing about the
Yes.
university, since this has sort of come up.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask Heather and the whole group. You've brought it up with the group you meet with. Do you think there would be any possible advantage of trying to find out whether the president would be generally supportive?
I can ask.
Okay, I could, if it's agreeable to everyone, I could draft a letter to him to share with all of you, and
That would be great.
how should we leave it, that we decide at the next meeting whether to do that or not? And in the meantime, you could
Mhm.
sort of check. I can't see any liability in it. I mean, the worst that could happen is they just say, not interested. But,
And the letter would say, we are interested in supporting historical buildings on campus.
yeah,
Are
Recognizing,
in
In partnering with. us
partnering, I
in
guess we
making-
could have to do something like that.
making
they're
that happen.
recognizing their historic significance to the,
To the ci-
to Bowling
city,
Green,
to
yeah,
the
the
city
campus
as
and
well as
to the campus
I
and
think
Bowling
at that
Green.
level, you would have the mayor, weigh in on that letter. Mayor to
Maybe it
president.
could be drafted.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
I
anyway,
can
I'll
put my
draft
name on it
something
too.
and
That would be great.
just share it internally with us and see how we want to proceed after that.
To Rodney Rogers.
To Rodney.
Yeah, you didn't go any farther with contact. This is
No,
just
I
something we
don't.
were starting to
No,
talk about.
No, I think our primary contact is through Heather. But sometimes it's good. I mean, if you get the president in favor, then lots of things happen a lot faster. If you don't, then, no harm done, really.
And if he is interested, we can organize a meeting with him to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we would say, we would ask for a meeting. That's sort of a standard thing.
Yeah.
He would either say yes, or he could designate somebody, and either way, a positive. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I put together some dates for making all this happen. Out. Can we look at that for a moment? Outline. Creative. My hope, and it sounds like it may not happen, Heather, is that the CLG will be finished by August. We have no idea of knowing, so
We
I'm going to
don't.
leave that there.
Yeah.
Does
it'd be
this
nice
get-
to-
Does our CLG get approved through the advisory board?
No.
Okay. Because I know
No.
they only meet 4 times a year.
Oh, okay.
So,
I mean, I just know it's National Park Service, and then they give Nathan
okay.
the approval.
Obviously, that's been our goal for a year and a half, and it's wonderful to see that almost completed. We hope it will be by the end of summer. As far as identifying, this is long-term goals, identifying and registering primary historic overlay zones. It's going to take us a long time to do that, I think. I don't even know if we can do it in 2 years, but I put fall of 2023. What's our sense on that?
I'd had a note just thinking of you had the maps like the Boontown.
Mm-hmm.
Are those digital?
Let me think here. I mean, yeah, we can make them a PDF.
I have the National Register.
I was
That's-
thinking
that
just
was
That, I think
Yeah,
that's
I
what
have
we're
them.
about.
of actually
we end up putting 'em-
brainstorming to start sketching out like
Right.
districts and
Uh-huh.
doing some design, like some planning within our commission.
We just translated that map to aerial map, like behind you with our GIS, just because
Oh,
it
great.
was so much easier to do that than look
Yeah.
at the kind of the faded lines and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
an older document. So,
Yeah.
You do have that?
yes.
Oh,
mhm.
great.
Well, I don't see anything wrong with listing fall of 2023 as a goal.
Yeah, I
I
don't.
mean, we may
We can
not
start
be able
now.
to make it, but
Yeah,
I-
but it'd be nice if we could have a projection for when we'd like to be done. It'll never be done because we'll be hopefully adding other structures as we go along, but having those major places identified. One thing that will be changing perhaps in the future, Heather reminded me that we have elections coming up for this commission as far as the chair and secretary and so forth, and we're going to have to do that next month. That's in June. Am I correct about that?
Yes, we do that in June. Hmm.
So be thinking about that. If anybody wants to be chair,
I
we
would
can.
like you to continue.
That's
that.
what I've already thought about it. I think
it's. Okay, we'll deal with that next month, okay? But we do have to also be aware that there are term limits for the membership, which I have no idea what they are. I don't know if I came on a
Well,
2-year.
two of you just got,
I just got
reappointed.
I have my
reappointed for
reappointment.
4 years.
You
so
were,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I know I have 4 more years.
You're on for a while.
If I-
Yeah.
If my
Are there term limits?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they did
I
change.
think-
Guess I
I
didn't-
think 8 years or something like that.
Okay.
When we started, I
Well,
think
they-
there were staggered term limits just
changed.
because
Yeah.
of the first, the first
Two
commission.
John,
issues,
you're-
and
May
This-
31st, 2022,
Who is that one?
you,
So I come
Right.
up in May.
yeah.
1 more year.
Will is
1 more year.
same, Will's the same,
What's mine?
May 31st, 2022, you'll expire. No, I'm just kidding, it just sounds funny when I say.
My,
your
yeah, my
name.
sheet was out,
Yeah.
it was out then.
Only
We
on
just got a
some.
new one, because Les and Chris were renewed, I guess is the word, reappointed.
So theirs
um,
is what, 5/31,
5/31/2025,
25. both
and then
Chris-
Christina is 5/31/2023.
but she's filling out somebody's term.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
you
What
said
about
John
Chris,
and-
What's Chris's?
Chris is 2025.
So John and
Same.
mine's,
2025.
John
Mhm.
and mine's the 2022.
Yes.
Yes.
So everybody's good through this coming year anyway.
Yes.
And you are
And then-
until when?
Uh,
When are you on for?
I'm till
2025.
May,
20
May 31st, 2025.
if I don't exhaust myself.
Or
first.
maybe until 2030 or 2035. Yeah, we'll keep it going. Okay, so there may be changes in the commission, just not that I'm anticipating that, but things change. So it may affect any kind of timetable we would set up. Just quickly looking at this short-term goals, overlay districts and structures. I don't know, can we do that by the fall of this year?
That's where I think like doing maps, it's sort of like architecturally when we do things, it's like design. You know, so it's actually sitting, when Les and I are on the planning commission, we thought we were doing planning and realized we didn't get to do planning. But it would
It's
be
a
like
bitter-
doing
it's a
a
bitter
design
memory.
shred. It's like sitting with what?
It's a bitter memory.
Oh,
But it'd be like sitting with maps and actually sketching where we think the district would be, whether like we establish different districts. Downtown.
Okay, so are we talking about? Okay.
And
so
the-
sort
and
of-
the-
Before we
we're
do
sort of talking
that,
about two things here.
yeah, I think we need to establish the procedure
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
of
That's what I-
how you would,
So we should
Yeah,
say,
so it
establish a procedure and then identify.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was
Because
wondering,
I
Heather,
think
is that, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here if Perrysburg or some other city has a good sheet or series of sheets that they could share with us? that
Yeah,
we
I'm
could-
thinking, I mean, Perrysburg, I shouldn't say they haven't really done anything, but part of their ordinance designated when they had a vote on the ballot,
Mm.
their historic area back in the 70s. So I don't believe that's changed. And so this has been the same that they've used. I'm just
I
trying to
just
think
finished
who's,
a local nomination for Toledo. I don't
Okay.
know if, I'll have to see if that's something I can share.
that would probably be more apples
They-
to apples then.
Some of theirs is part of their development code, so there's some additional, things they ask for that are more development related or related.
Well, I feel like, remember when we had the gentleman from Pogemeyer? I think he gave us something for Toledo. I'll double check the records.
Maybe he did.
Gave us something for,
For a process of designation.
really?
And he might have gave us the Vistula. Remember, he had different districts.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Toledo Municipal Code has it written in their process. I can send that. I have it in my email somewhere.
Okay.
The chapter that is.
At any rate, we need a procedure.
Yeah.
And then we can start identifying those, or at least what we would like to see. I mean, we've got a lot of selling to do on all this to our community as well.
And don't forget the building inventories too.
And
I think it's,
do we, but wouldn't you see us deciding first on an overlay zone before we start building inventories? How would which would come first?
do you all see this as something that where we're kind of spearheading all of the overlay zones?
I did.
I think so.
Okay.
And we're starting like with a clean slate. You know, we have some
Right.
existing that
But
are,
I know we talked a little bit about some of these like grassroots efforts and what happens if, my neighbor wants to gather all the Boomtown people to do one. That's why I think the procedure would be nice so that anybody in the community could say, hey, I want to do this.
I just don't know that we're going to see that happen. Do you
I
think
know.
we will? Unless we raise the flag and start.
So the
Cheerleading a little
advantage
bit.
is, particularly in, the commercial buildings, if you're locally listed, you're eligible for state tax credit. So that's where I see it a lot in my work is people come to us and say, hey, I want to locally list, my building. A developer will come and say, I want to locally list my building so I can apply for state tax.
I don't see anything wrong with letting that happen if it
Right.
happens, because they could always subsequently be incorporated into
Yeah.
a district
I think that
or
would be
not,
great.
depending.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that is a little bit of wishful thinking, but I
Yeah.
would hope that some of the people in town would say, hey, I want to put my building on local register.
Well, and that's how it's happened in Kent, and that's how it's
Right.
happened in some of the Toledo
Right.
downtown buildings, because they want those tax credits, so.
And maybe once we get this all started, we'll see some groundswell of excitement. I don't
Right.
know. I just thinking about our community on North Maple and Worcester, and
Right.
we will have to go out and really talk it up to make it happen. I mean, my neighbors would absolutely do it, but they're not going to be initiating it, I don't think.
Right. I mean, it's work, to
Yeah.
get those, compile everything.
Okay, so establish procedure, identify sequence and process for the overlay districts.
the other
and
thing,
Can I
start-
just
Yeah,
make a comment here?
Yeah.
I mean, we have tended to think of districts in terms of the existing
boom down,
the National Register.
right.
And maybe that's not the smartest approach. Maybe, I don't know, but I think we ought to talk about the possibility that what we ought to do is try to think, what would be the ideal historic district for Bowling Green?
that's what I'm
Would
thinking.
it
That's-
include, say, the north and south corridors, as well as the west corridor, and
That's what I'm,
maybe
that's
not
what
the
I'm,
east corridor, because that's something else.
that's what I'm talking about, the maps,
Yeah.
of actually
And
proposing
then-
what would be included. And it may be for us to take a walking or going around and looking at what extent, say out west Worcester, what would be the extent and what would be the extent on North Main and South Main and, and just,
We could certainly talk about it, and we could do whatever walking tours we wanted to.
or even individually and then collectively we compare.
I keep remembering remember John Wade, when we
Mhm.
had John Wade for a few months? That
Oh,
he
yeah.
said something really interesting, I thought, which was, maybe would it work better? Would there be a better chance of we were talking about a majority vote at that point. We're not talking about that literally anymore, but still, I think we
Mhm.
probably need a majority of people before city council would be willing to act. Would there be a better chance of getting the downtown business owners to agree if they were part of a broader group? Would we have a greater chance of getting a majority if we didn't deal with individual districts, but did sort of one big district? And I don't know the answer to the question, but I think it's an
You
important.
mean just one zoning district for whatever we think is a historical part of
So
Bowling
the
Green?
the historic district of Bowling Green is,
And it includes the
and it
downtown.
includes, it would have to include the downtown, I would think. But it could include the corridors, it could include the Court
Courthouse,
Street,
yeah.
Court Street.
We can still identify districts within that just for our own interest,
Yeah.
but
There will always be the National Register.
Yeah,
There'll always be
right,
Boomtown,
right.
so National Register.
okay, so I think we need more discussion on it, but it's a good idea.
I think it's a question to ask ourselves.
Like I said, I think that's how Perrysburg does it. They've had this district, and that's been that way since the 70s.
Okay.
The other thing connected to that would be the actual application process for the building owners or property owners. And that's probably existing at some of these other cities too.
Okay, you're talking about building inventories?
No, I'm talking about how does someone that has a house actually
Yeah.
apply to get the house?
Right, that
Yeah,
Oh,
that
if
was-
it's
That was
outside
really
of-
what I had in
if it's
mind. I was thinking
outside of
about
the
the
district?
the actual
No, if it's in the
process of
district,
Oh.
how do
we
they,
get
we're
the
talking
listing.
about our process
Yeah.
of
Maybe
establishing
some of
the
the other
districts and
cities
the
have
building.
that,
laws.
that we could.
I'm looking at
align
from
ourselves on.
a property
homeowner.
owners. Like, how do they apply then? What paperwork do they do?
I have to
Yeah,
tell you all
that-
frankly, I have no record of what we've been talking about. It's too, we're
Yeah,
all over the
yeah.
place, so there isn't going to be anything in the minutes
Oh,
about the details of what we
no.
just talked about. 'cause
Oh,
I'll-
no.
We're talking about 4 or 5 different things here,
Yeah, we
that's
are.
interesting.
all important.
Well, to that point, because, I mean, I'm going to reference Toledo because that's the area I work in. Where they have, 5 kind of things that you need to address in your, nomination. But they don't care format or whatever. And so I kind of, we could follow something similar where we say, we want to know the history of the building, who owned it, why it's important, those sorts of things. And then these, 3
Like
other.
a questionnaire kind of
Yeah, it's just, these
document?
couple little things that if you address those, then their format
The
is similar. It goes to
significance of the property.
plan commission and then city council.
And so each structure is eventually registered then in that zoning district, is that right?
Right,
By this particular
right.
questionnaire that they would fill out?
It's not even a question. I mean, we could do a question, but it's just more like, here are 5 things they want to make sure you include, and then,
Sort of like that when we heard on that seminar from the Park Service.
yeah.
For the, they were talking about certain things not to put in,
Oh, right.
you
Yeah, and it's just sort of, a written document of those couple items.
They said like maybe they had a building that wanted to know who the architect of the building was, but they didn't need to know that the architect had 3 kids.
Now,
That
who
doesn't-
did this come from? Was this from you, Chris, or from Will? This historic inventory, was that you,
Those,
Chris?
One of
I
them was,
think, yeah, I think I sent one in an email.
that was from mine,
and
I think.
That was yours?
I think
from-
Will sent one too.
Okay, I mean,
And that was on the campus, that's Ohio University.
so you're not thinking of something as detailed as this then?
I mean, it could be. Those.
So was this filled out, say, by the applicant?
That was
Probably.
probably filled out by a heritage. That, building owner hired.
Like a
Um,
consultant? like-
I mean, it'd be kind of, I'll pass this around. You can, did you get this copy?
Yeah,
You
I-
saw this? Heather, you know what
That's
we're
kinda
talking
like
about?
Interesting,
I
'cause
should have it all.
that's on the campus, that's the Ohio University
Those
building.
I mean, I think SHPO uses those Ohio inventories. I mean, they would love it if we were
I-
able to produce some of those.
I
for
think
them.
it'd be great
I
if
just-
we had, I mean, but maybe it's just too detailed for most of our homeowners, I don't know, but to have a little picture and a description of the what's there, that maybe some of the history. Oh, anyway, we can think
I
about
think
that.
those are would be a great thing to look at. And they've moved that particular process all online. I'm sure we could find blank copies of it somewhere, though. Nathan might be able to provide that.
Okay, so that's going to be a continuing this, the procedure and the process for figuring out our zoning districts. Social media, I put down Chris and Christina are going to be our leaders in that area. That's okay? And maybe with something by the fall, can we have like a Twitter account or whatever you think we need?
I liked Christina's idea of maybe just using what the city already has and being able to just send them stuff, occasionally is
Through the city or through our
right.
own account?
through the city.
Use city.
I don't know
account.
who manages that.
It's Joe Fawcett.
Joe Fawcett.
Yeah,
okay.
and Amanda Gamby together.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got our e-news and then our Twitter and then our Facebook. Now, were
So,
you going to still do an article for?
Yeah, and I
Okay.
meant to mention that I I had it drafted. For some reason, I never sent it out to
Okay.
you all, so I just sent it to Joe yesterday
okay,
because I
okay.
didn't, I ran out of time.
Okay.
That's okay.
So I
That's
apologize.
okay.
I was
I
making
kind
sure,
of
'cause
combined all this,
historic
some of the stuff.
preservation month, right? That's what we were talking
Right.
about for May.
Yeah. I just kind of, took stuff from everything we'd already compiled, just, what is preservation? Why is it important?
And this is
great.
was presented to whom?
It was sent to Joe Fawcett for
To
the
be
BG
posted on the BG News?
newsletter. Is that what it's
We have
called?
an e-newsletter.
E-newsletter, yeah.
Yeah. Are you all on that?
I don't know.
Don't think so.
I don't,
Oh.
not sure I am.
Yeah, you should, it
Probably am.
comes in your email.
I get it.
If you're not, I'll make sure to email that out.
I
Yeah.
The
probably
link,
am. Okay.
sign up.
Good. Okay, I just want to go through this fast. The landscaping, we do need to deal with at some point, but I'd say let's wait until we hear back from CLG people, and then we can update that. Updating FAQs, I don't know if we're going to get to that. We're not getting through a lot of things today, summer or fall of 2021, and that would be for like community engagement, being prepared for any kind of questions that come up. Did you have hard questions in your presentation the other day?
A couple. It was, well, one person wanted to know what the landlords thought, which was
Yeah.
interesting. It wasn't a hostile question, he was
No.
just
Yeah.
was curious,
Yeah,
I think.
good question.
I don't remember, can't remember whether there were hard questions. They were mostly
No.
soft questions.
There
Yeah.
were-
There was like, everything was positive. I mean,
Yeah,
there
it was
wasn't
all
any like,
positive, yeah.
like,
Well, that's pretty interesting.
Did you get to hear any of it?
No, I didn't.
no.
No, I wasn't at work that day and I was
Yeah.
busy, so I apologize.
And I was at a wedding for my son. So,
that
yeah, I
was a
got married
wedding.
last weekend
Really?
in California,
Oh,
right?
Congratulations.
well,
On the beach,
Wow.
Laguna Beach.
Wow.
Oh,
Nice.
Laguna Beach, wow.
You know Laguna?
Yeah.
It was beautiful. Yeah. Very small wedding, but it
There
was,
were-
it was fun.
I think there was a question about the existing boom town and things, and I mentioned that we're starting like with a clean slate, and it,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
because they were wondering about the existing
If it'd be-
historic districts,
Yeah,
if
they
they're,
Be the
asked
same.
you know,
Okay.
I think it clarified there that there are no existing ones. There are, but they're not
National
connected.
Register
They're not,
districts.
yeah, they're not connected to the ordinance. And
Okay, so we need to update those FAQs, prepare format for inventory of structures. This was, I guess, what I was thinking about with this form.
Yeah.
We can create our
a good
own.
start.
And that might be something we have to go into the fall on. I don't know if we could get all this done this summer. Consult with Downtown Business Association, and we want to also do presentation with them. And present, and Christina suggested we meet at Juniper, which I think will be really valuable to do. I think we should wait till fall maybe for that. What do you think?
I have to check on that because we've always had issues going off site because you have to be able to accommodate everybody. So that's why we have speakers that amplify, just an example. So I think I need to check on that
So
further.
even for a presentation for an organization, we would need to have it broadcast.
Well, we want to be careful that we're accessible
Okay,
as a city board.
okay, we'll rely on you to tell us what we have to
Okay.
do.
I'm not being a curmudgeon here, but I have some little bit of concern about our meeting at a business owned by one of our members. It could be construed as a kind of conflict of interest. I'm not sure that's such a great idea.
Well, I would see it only a conflict if that's the only place we met. You know, if we would maybe move around to different places.
I was thinking about our official HPC meeting, not a
Oh.
presentation. A presentation, that's a different issue.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay,
But she
I thought you
volunteered
were,
to host the
It-
HPC, and I'm not sure that's so
It-
smart.
It's true. That's a good point.
But we were talking about our presentation to the downtown association.
That's what I
okay,
was.
so
that's
yeah,
what I was
okay.
thinking.
That's a
That's what I-
different question.
Okay. Consult with BGSU, and we're already starting that process if you're going to write a letter to.
I'll draft some.
Okay, so let me just put that down. Les is drafting letter to President Rogers. Okay, ongoing promotion and support of historic events and preparation, organization of a process for considering certificate COAs. Yeah, now that we don't have to deal with that for a while, but that will come up. How we're going to enforce delinquent property owners, how that enforcement will take place. We can save that for next year at some point.
Just want to add to the list, if you become a certified local government, that really you should start thinking about that capability to apply for grants. Just because, at least from the city side, as I read it, we do have to do a match, whether that be financial match or in-house or in-kind services. But I think you should think about that because there is a deadline. They are competitive. So just, I think, consider that what you may use it for.
The CLG grant.
Yes,
The city matches the grant?
there is a
Does-
match requirement, but it could be financial or in-kind,
I see.
as I read it.
Okay.
Now, again, I'm no expert. I've just read some of the criteria. And I can send the link to, if you want to review some examples of what people have done and the criteria,
So criteria for.
the grants, yeah, what you can
Criteria
do.
for grants, matching and otherwise. Okay.
And I
there's-
say that because also we have to do our city budget starting in the fall. So usually in October, we're all told this, we need your budget by this deadline. And so I obviously have one for boards and commissions. So that's where I would want to consider any 2022 activities.
Okay.
One of those seminars too was talking about some of the grants that are available for actually doing some of the surveys. Whether in using consultants to do
Uh-huh.
some of that.
Good.
So if you're adding something about grant applications, that should be a more immediate issue than just ongoing, right?
Shall we talk about that this summer? Can we
I
add
think
that?
so, because I think they award them in the fall. So I don't know what the timeline is for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll
Okay.
send the link so you all can look.
So are you imagining that we have some kind of just a one-page explaining the process?
There's a form, so I don't remember
Just
the detail.
make a form available for
Yeah.
grants. Okay. Okay, 2021. I think it's good to have a calendar, which we of course will never be able to keep exactly, but just so we know where we're going and when we'd like to have things maybe in place. So any changes are agreeable with me, just we can revisit this off and on.
Well, I suggest, you've been taking notes, John, right? I suggest that you bring back an adjusted version at the next meeting. and
I
we
will do,
can
I'll do that.
Maybe
we can
give us a chance to look at it ahead of time.
Review
and
it again.
We can try to deal with it more formally.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up here and just.
One thing I'd add to it is I'm going to call it the Bowling Green Historic Preservation Fund.
For the grants.
Yeah, no, this is the endowment.
Okay, where do I put that?
You could just put it down like you have item. Ongoing. I need to
Ongoing.
make a new
Yep,
one.
ongoing.
Make a
I'll
new
st-
one. Okay,
Yep, and I'll work with the mayor on that, and I need to get going on, say, writing the deed of the gift and
creating an endowment.
creating it.
Creation
Yep.
of
He
an
didn't want to create it until the CLG's been approved, and didn't want to do it ahead, but it could be started.
And we also have the potential gift from the
Then
Boomtown people, which.
If it could go in that, I mean,
Yeah.
ideally, it'd be great to build up a fund with hundreds of thousands of dollars, that it would pay off
Yes.
thousands of dollars. Right now, we just got one, my wife and I created with our church. And it's endowed and it pays 3%. So the university, they used to pay 5, but they
Yeah.
had to go down. So I calculated, it looks like it's 3%. So if you have $100,000 in it, you'd get 3,000 a year come off of that. And the money's in perpetuity, so you can't touch the money, but you get the interest. So if we could get it up to $1 million, you're talking what, 30,000? I mean, you're talking a substantial amount of money that might be able to be granted to individuals then for certain repairs or things.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yeah.
We could all chip in $50 and
Well, I think
get it started.
I would, yeah, I would.
I'm not serious about that. Okay, so I'll add to this and bring a updated version for next meeting. We know when it's going to be. What would we like to accomplish?
I'd
I
like
was- oh, go
to
ahead, sorry.
like, get moving on the FAQs. I think having it something, so when we're doing these presentations, we can tell people, oh, if you go to our website, there's more information.
Okay,
So I'll take a look at what we already have and what we might want to add to that before our
we can
next
all
meeting.
do that. But if you can lead that
Yeah.
that charge, that would be great.
Yeah.
Chris will lead us.
Not to add to our workload, but I really thought this is a good time in the summer to be talking to our university partners such as Salim Al-Wazani, because I feel like, he'll be planning for fall, so he may have some students interested in helping us with the building inventory, for example, or maybe a walking tour. Like, I feel like we should be taking advantage of things kind of opening up now, and
I
that he could have some projects that would be good for students and also good for the HPC.
And you'll be meeting with these people?
I can.
No,
I
not
can-
Salim, but we do have a
Yes.
good contact with him already,
Mhm.
so.
Okay, so
and
Will,
I can, yeah. I
Okay,
know, yeah,
great.
yeah.
excellent. Other pressing topics?
To do that right now.
We may, if we hear back from CLG, we'll have to address that immediately, but that could go on for a while. We should discuss the approach for the city buildings like Needle Hall. I mean, I think we all agree we want to do that. Maybe the police building, of course, the courthouse and all those. So we can continue that discussion, decide how we're gonna.
Right.
And we'll have more information after
Right,
that
after
meeting on
review,
June
right.
3rd. Okay, and things will come up. So I'm not worried about having a dearth of discussion topics. But we'll start with those things. All right. Any request for adjournment today or any final comments? Heather's getting anxious over
No,
there.
we have a 10 o'clock meeting.
So
That's the
we
only
have to
reason
get
I'm-
out of here.
Yeah.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay, second? I'll second.